This Christmas, I'ma make a memory. Written by OllieCollie on Ao3. Chapter 4. The bitter chill of the evening hits Tony the moment he steps out onto the sidewalk, cold air biting through his jacket after the warmth of being indoors and nearly working up a sweat. He pauses instinctively, holding the door open as Pepper and Peter step out behind him. Despite the cold, there's an atmosphere of anticipation in the air as people make their way up and down the streets, the sounds of traffic and voices mingling together as the hours count down to Christmas Day. Twinkling lights glow from the storefronts and street lamps, reflecting in slushy patches along the curb. "You made the reservations, right?" Tony asks, glancing at Pepper as he pulls his gloves back on. "Of course," she answers affirmatively. Peter's nose scrunches as he looks between them with confusion. "Reservations?" Pepper smiles, placing a hand on his back to guide him forwards. "We're going to dinner," she explains as they begin to walk. "If that's okay with you." Tony watches as the kid's eyes blink with surprise. It feels like damage control at this point, and maybe it is. But it's better than nothing. They've tried to be intentional about spending one-on-one time with Peter since Morgan was born. Outside of the tower too. Not just Tony and Peter spending hours in the lab together. Which, to be fair, is also prime bonding time. But it's still different making the effort to actually go somewhere and spend some alone time with him. Give him space to share his feelings without the risk of being interrupted. With the chaos of the holiday season, they haven't had a chance to do that this month. Yeah. Peter hesitates a beat. I mean, we don't have to if we need to get home. Tony cuts him off mid-sentence. "Nope, not accepting any arguments," he says, leading them to the car parked on the street. "You fed half of Manhattan tonight, kid. It's your turn to eat." On cue, Peter's stomach growls loudly. "That's what I thought." Peter rolls his eyes, pink tinging his cheeks, but he slumps into Tony's side when he holds out his arm. The restaurant isn't far. It isn't the most upscale place they've ever frequented, not requiring formal dress, which is a good thing, because Tony is pretty sure he's got a gravy stain on the cuff of his shirt sleeve. But it's one that normally has a months-long wait list. Pepper knows all the best spots. The building is humming with activity when they walk in, but it isn't hectic either. They are led to a small table in a quiet corner of the upper floor, next to the wall that is made out of glass. The lights of the city glow dozens of feet beneath them, a sight that never gets old. "Thanks again for coming today," Peter says as they settle in, as if they hadn't royally screwed up by forgetting in the first place. "Don't thank us for that, kid." Tony pulls out a chair for Pepper before sliding into his own seat across from his son. He deserves no gratitude for the bare minimum. In fact, it makes him feel patronized. Mistakes happen, and it's not worth beating himself up over. But man, does he want to. Because he knows Peter won't. The kid's got too good of a heart for that. Peter gives a small shrug, fiddling with the edge of the rolled napkin holding his silverware. "Are you sure I'm not in trouble for sneaking out?" he asks, biting his lip as he glances up. Tony huffs an amused sigh. "Pete, you're the only kid I know who would try to talk yourself into a punishment." "You don't know any kids beside me and Morgan," Peter retorts cheekily, "and she doesn't talk at all yet." "Tread carefully, kiddo. I can keep that Spidey suit hanging up for as long as I deem necessary." Peter narrows his eyes. "You wouldn't." "Was that a challenge?" "Dad!" Pepper nudges him under the table, knee knocking against his. Tony relents, if only because Peter is beginning to look slightly panicked at the thought of being grounded from Spider-Man even after he's declared fit for duty by the doctor. "Just yanking your chain, bud. he says in lieu of an apology. He leans back in his chair. You'll be back in action soon enough. Did you have a good time helping at feast? Pepper asks, smoothly redirecting the conversation. Peter turns his attention to her and nods, something akin to nostalgia sparkling in his eyes. May loved helping for Christmas, he tells them. A lot of people would usually want to take time off for the holidays, but she always worked extra. And that was very kind of her. Yeah. And you volunteered often too? At Christmas? Pepper clarifies. Not every year, Peter says. But a few times. When we did, we'd usually go out to dinner together afterwards. It felt... he looks a little lost. It felt sort of like this, actually. Tony can't tell if that's a good thing or a bad thing. The waiter arrives just then, dropping off 3 waters at each of their places and asking if they'd like any additional drinks or appetizers before promising to return shortly to take their entree orders. Peter, Pepper starts once the waiter has moved on to the next table, carefully sliding her glass of water aside and letting her arms rest on the table, interlacing her fingers. You don't have to answer this if you don't want to, she prefaces gently. But has this time of year been harder than usual for you? Tony is beyond grateful for his wife's grace and tact. They're both pretty sure they already know the answer, but they want to hear it from him. It's possible the kid hasn't even been able to admit it to himself. Peter freezes for a moment at the loaded question. His gaze flickers down at the condensation on his water glass, and he absently runs his finger over the edge of the rim. A little, he finally admits, voice quieter than usual. There it is. Tony exchanges a glance with Pepper. Eyes still on his water, Peter continues. I don't know why. I mean, I'm happy. I really am. Happiness and grief aren't mutually exclusive, Tony says. I didn't feel like this last year, at least not this much. He sounds almost frustrated. There's no clear path to grief, Peter. Pepper unlaces her fingers and slides one hand across the table to cover Peter's. It's not abnormal to go through periods where it seems worse, especially during the holidays. The kid's head dips in a small nod, but there's still a tightness in the square of his shoulders. Remember when I told you the other night that you can talk to us about anything? Tony asks, waiting for the confirming nod before swirling his index finger in a wide circle and continuing. This is included under the anything umbrella. I know, Peter bites his lip, but it makes me feel bad, because I don't want you guys to think I'm not grateful for everything you've done for me, or that I love you less, or anything like that. It's just, sometimes I miss them so much it hurts. His hand scrabbles weakly at his chest, like he can rub the pain away if he tries hard enough. He sounds as though he's on the precipice of tears. Oh, honey, no, Pepper says immediately, standing and rounding the table to take the seat next to Peter, wrapping her arms around him. We would never think that, Tony adds. He's gutted by the thought that his son has been hiding his pain because of the worry that it would be perceived as ungratefulness. Your heart isn't a finite resource, sweetheart, Pepper says, running a hand up and down Peter's good arm in a soothing motion. There isn't a limit on how many people you're allowed to love. Peter sniffles and blinks, a couple of tears cascading down his cheeks. May and Ben raised you, and I can tell from everything you've told us about them that Leigh loved you very, very much. We would never think less of you for missing them, or think it means you love us less. Since Ditto seems a little cavalier, Considering the emotional weight of the conversation, Tony opts for, "She's right, bud. Nothing will ever change how we feel about you. And you shouldn't feel bad for missing people you've lost. I still miss my parents." And his relationship with his dad was complicated and strained at best. Their reassurances seem to make Peter feel better. "Really?" he asks. Tony nods. "Yeah." "You never need to feel bad about grieving," Pepper says, "or telling us about it. We want to be here for you, whatever you need." "And that includes pestering us as many times as it takes to keep us from forgetting important things, like volunteering at the homeless shelter on Christmas Eve." Tony raises an eyebrow. That brings a little levity to the heavy atmosphere hanging over the table. Peter huffs a laugh. "Trust me, I'm never forgetting something like that again," Pepper declares, shaking Peter's shoulder gently. "Anything you mention to me, it's going on the calendar immediately. And I'm giving you access to my digital calendar so you can add things yourself too, just in case." "You don't have to do that," Peter protests. Tony shakes his head. "Kid, I've learned long ago not to argue with Pep when she's made up her mind about something. You see that look in her eye? Mine's made up. Thank your mother and move on." "Don't thank me," Pepper interjects. "This is simply a solution to a problem that should never have existed in the first place." "You okay?" Tony asks, analysing the kid with a sharp gaze. He hopes they're done with tears. He hates the tears because he hates to see his kids in pain. But if it's what Peter needs in order to let out some of those emotions he's been bottling up for so long, then he'll let the kid cry all over him right here, right now. "Yes, I'm sorry." Peter straightens, brushing at the half-dried tears streaking his cheeks. "I'm making a scene." Tony snorts. "Trust me, kid, this is tame compared to the scenes I've caused in restaurants." "I can attest to that," Pepper mutters with a small smile. She squeezes Peter one more time. "Would you rather just go home? We can take some food to go." But Peter shakes his head, using his sleeve to wipe the last traces of tears from his face. No, I want to stay. Please. This is really nice." "Won't hear any complaints from me," Tony says, glad to see the tension finally beginning to bleed out of his kid's shoulders. "This is better than—" "Better than last Christmas Eve?" Peter interrupts. Tony pales. That wasn't where he was going with that sentence, but definitely. Peter glances down at the menu. "Can we try the crab cakes?" Tony's lips quirk upward in amusement. "Kiddo, we can order the whole menu." Christmas Day. The living room looks like Christmas exploded. There are new toys scattered across the floor, but of course Morgan is enthralled with only one thing: the crumpled gift wrap strewn around the brightly coloured toddler slide, books and stuffed animals. Peter winces when he sees his sister going for a sample of the wrapping paper she's currently clutching. "Mum!" "Oh, don't eat that, Morgan!" Pepper quickly reacts, gently prying the wad of red and white paper out of the baby's fist just as it rises to her mouth. Of course, Morgan's immediate reaction to being kept from choking is to start crying. Her face scrunches up and she lets out a hiccupy sob. "Hey, kiddo!" Rhodey intervenes before the situation can escalate, swooping in with the farm animal board book he'd given her earlier. He flips it open with exaggerated enthusiasm. "Whoa! Look at that! It's a sheep!" "Bah!" Morgan's tears pause as she stares up at the man, expression turning blank as she tries to process the strange noise. "Bah!" Rhodey repeats, tapping the page. The baby reaches for the book, tugging it out of his hands and pulling it up to her mouth to begin chewing on the corner. "Ba, ba, ba," she mumbles. Stop that, you're not a beaver. Peter grins as he watches from his spot on the floor in front of the couch. He's surrounded by his own pile of gifts, ranging from clothes, Pepper's idea for sure, to Lego sets to a new watch Tony designed specially for him. It's his third Christmas here, yet he's still blown away by the amount of presents he managed to amass and the thoughtfulness behind each one. Ouch! Tony yelps, shaking out his hand that he apparently pinched in the process of putting together pieces for the new kitchen playset they'd gotten Morgan. The baby bursts into giggles. Oh, you think that's funny, do you? Tony glowers, feigning offence, but there's a small smile twitching at the corners of his mouth. Do you need help with that? Peter asks, raising a sceptical eyebrow at the array of tools and plastic pieces surrounding his dad. No, Tony says, entirely too fast. Do I need help? He mutters under his breath, sounding offended by the mere notion. Rhodey moves over uninvited to join Tony on his endeavour to decipher the instructions manual for the toy anyway, and they immediately start bickering over it. Something warm settles in Peter's chest as he watches his family talking and laughing around him. He'd woken up this morning missing May and Ben, but for the first time in a long time, he didn't feel like he needed to hide it. Instead of shoving the emotions down, he let them wash over him, but he also didn't let them keep him from the excitement of going to look under the tree at all the presents that had appeared overnight. Nor did it take away the warmth and safety and love that he felt when Tony and Pepper had emerged from their room and greeted him with hugs and a big Merry Christmas. This had already been one of his favourite Christmases ever, and it's not even 10 a.m. yet. Peter turns his head, and his jaw drops. Look! Pepper gasps. A hush falls over the room as every gaze locks on Morgan, who is standing smack dab in the middle of the rug. Standing. By herself, with no support. The baby wobbles, bouncing up and down a little, her arms lifted in an instinctive, slightly off-balance way. She sways a little, wide eyes darting around the room full of people who have suddenly gone very, very still. You're not about to walk right now, Tony mutters in disbelief. Rhodey leans over and smacks him, making a shutting sound as he stares at the scene unfolding before them. Morgan lets out a delighted noise, clearly pleased with all the attention, and then her gaze drifts, past her parents, past the wrapping paper and no toys, until it lands on Peter. Oh, he breathes, letting his blanket drop off his shoulders as he shifts to sit up on his knees. Hey, Momo, come see. Come here. You can do it. He carefully gestures to her with his good hand, holding it out like it's a lifeline. Morgan's face lights up. She lifts up one foot, moving it an inch forward before planting it back down on the floor. The step is wobbly, but she doesn't topple over. Instead, she moves her other foot. Yes, come on, he urges, holding his breath as he watches her take another careful step. The floor is a minefield of boxes and paper, but Morgan navigates the 3 feet between herself and her brother like a pro, arms windmilling as she toddles forward with a furrowed brow and a determination that could only come from a Stark. With one final step that's more of a stumble, she pitches forward, right into Peter's open arm. He catches her easily, pulling her into his chest with a long whoop. The sound is echoed by everyone else, including Morgan, who curls her fingers into his shirt and grins up at him like she knows she just did something important. She walked! Peter crows proudly, announcing the unnecessary to the others. His face feels like it's about to split open with the size of his grin. No way, Rhodey says. No way my niece just took her first steps. She's not even 10 months old. Pepper laughs through happy tears, pressing a hand to her heart. Fry, Tony says, You better have recorded that. Peter blinks, unexpected emotion rising in his chest, and he hugs Morgan just a little tighter. You are the smartest baby sister ever, he whispers to her, tickling her ribs gently. She squeals with joy. They spend the next 10 minutes trying to get her to do it again. Tony dramatically waving his hands and cooing at the baby as he encourages her to walk to him. Much to his chagrin, the only thing that interests her is when he pulls out Chippy the elf and holds it up in front of him. Morgan walks 3 steps before dropping to her knees and crawling at an impressive speed right over to him, grabbing the elf with both hands. Tony groans, picking up his daughter and settling her in his lap. Not you too. Morgan starts chewing happily on Chippy's arm. Yes, please, eat it. She knows you hate it, Pepper says, shaking her head. Peter laughs. I don't think this Christmas could get any better, he declares, not noticing the way the 3 adults exchange glances at the word. Tony clears his throat. Oh, wait, there's one more present here. Pepper grabs the small bag from under the tree and returns to the couch, depositing the gift in Peter's lap. Peter adjusts his sling and blinks. This is for me? Pepper moves to lift Morgan out of Tony's arms and nods, smiling. Open it. Okay. A little apprehensive because of all the sudden rapt attention on him, Peter begins pulling the tissue paper out of the bag. He reaches in and pulls out a stuffed duck toy. Peter turns it over in his hands, stroking his fingers over the soft fuzz. Thank you, he says gratefully, because it's a cute toy. He can put it on the shelf in his room. Still, he can't deny that he's a little confused. It seems like something that would have been a bit better suited for Morgan. So why is everyone staring at him like he was just handed the keys to a sports car? Do you know what that is? Tony asks, looking very amused. A duck? Squeeze it. Peter does as instructed, and the toy squeaks. Morgan perks up at the sound, watching with wide eyes as her brother squeezes the duck again, and it makes the same noise. Keep going, Tony says, unable to contain a smirk. He's got his phone in his hand like he was typing out a text. Confused, Peter squeaks the toy again. And again. He looks back down at the duck, turning it over again. It's well made. Soft, sturdy. He looks at the tag, wondering if this is some kind of prank or something. Maybe to get back at him for the chaos he caused with Chippy. Under the brand name are 2 simple words. Dog toy. A dog toy. His stomach does a weird little flip. Before he can fully process that thought, there's a soft ding from the direction of the elevator. Pepper and Rhodey's smiles widen. Tony straightens, tucking his phone into his pocket like he's trying very hard not to look like he's pleased with himself. And then a flash of golden fur barrels into the living room. The dog skids slightly on the hardwood, claws scrabbling for traction before it regains its footing and launches itself forward with barely contained enthusiasm. Its tail is a blur, ears flopping wildly as it beelines straight for Peter. Peter barely has time to brace himself before he finds himself with an armful of fluffy golden retriever. He clutches at it automatically, blinking as he tries to process what's happening. What? He manages to stutter, feeling utterly overwhelmed and still confused. I think you broke him, Rhodey says with glee. Merry Christmas, Peter, Pepper says. Peter is sure his eyes must be about to pop out of his head. I'm getting a dog? He asks, dumbfounded at the mere idea, despite the fact that he's been begging for one for months. Tony raises his eyebrows. I'm pretty sure you've got a dog. He motions at the wiggling, lanky ball of fur draped over Peter's lap. It's my dog? He's still in disbelief, looking between his parents as if they might suddenly start laughing and say it was all a joke. The dog wriggles in his arms, bouncing up to plant a wet, slobbery kiss on his chin before snatching up the abandoned toy duck on the floor and holding it proudly. I'm certifiably insane to have done this, but yes, Tony nods. All yours. Happy, you there? Calls toward the hallway. Happy appears in the hallway, looking slightly ruffled. He's holding a leash in his hand. Hate to tell you this, Tony, but you might need to call in the cleaners for the elevator. Happy, I got a dog! Peter interrupts excitedly, lifting the dog as best he can with one hand. I see that. Despite his outward gruffness, Happy's expression softens. Merry Christmas, kid. She's a rescue, about a year old, Pepper tells him, bouncing Morgan on her leg. She was a lot calmer when I picked her up yesterday, Happy says, moving over to sit on one of the open chairs in the room. Rhodey smiles, watching the dog eagerly nose Peter, snuffling his face, hands and sling. She must know this is her boy. Tony hums, pointing a finger at Peter. Just remember, it'll be your responsibility. Feeding, playing, taking it on walks. Oof! The man's lecture is cut off by 110 pounds of teenager landing on top of him. Thank you, Peter says, unable to properly hug his dad because one arm is in a cast and the other is wrapped around his new dog. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Tony hugs him, patting his back. Merry Christmas, bud. Peter still can't believe this. The last 24 hours have felt like some sort of dream. Do you have a name for her? Rhodey asks. Peter runs his hand through the puppy's soft fur, considering the question for only a moment. Noelle, he says decisively. The first Noel was one of both May and Ben's favourite Christmas carols. And it means Christmas, so... He shrugs. Yeah. And that's a beautiful name, Peter. Pepper says. Noelle lets out a little yip, nuzzling into Peter's offered hand, and he grins. His very own dog. Morgan's eyes widen at the sound. She squeals, squirming in Pepper's arms until she gets down on the floor. Noelle notices the movement and prances over to the couch. Careful, girl, Peter says, ready to grab the dog's collar if she tries anything too rough. But Noelle stills as she approaches the baby, the rapid flap, flap, flap of her feathery tail whipping back and forth like a flag in the wind, her only movement. She snuffles gently at Morgan. Morgan lets out a delighted little gasp, fingers curling in the air as Noelle's nose brushes her socked foot again. She kicks her legs out and giggles when the dog startles back half a step, then immediately leans in again, curiosity winning out. Noelle lowers herself carefully onto the rug, belly to the floor, tail still wagging but slower now, like she's consciously trying to be gentle. She noses at Morgan's hand again, giving it one experimental lick before freezing, as if waiting for consequences. Morgan squeals, absolutely thrilled. She pushes herself onto her hands and knees and starts crawling forwards. Noelle lets out a soft bark of alarm, quickly following after the baby and circling around her, nudging at Morgan's sides with her big black nose as she moves. Is she trying to herd the baby? Rhodey asks, amused. The rescue said she was great with kids, Pepper replies, keeping a close eye on the dog and baby playing together on the floor. Tony clicks his tongue. Maybe she can take over babysitting duty on the weekends. The adults share a chuckle over that, and Peter shifts closer to his sister and his new dog, sitting cross-legged on the floor so he's level with them. He rests his good hand on Noelle's back. Her fur is soft and warm beneath his fingers, further proof that this isn't some sort of hallucination. The retriever glances up at him then, dark eyes soft and trusting, before pressing her head into his knee with a small, content huff. "Hey," he whispers, fingers brushing over her back. His vision is getting blurry for some reason. "Hey, girl." Peter breathes deeply, grounding himself in the moment. The happy voices around him, the warmth of the crackling fireplace, the dog pressed into his side. But most of all, in the knowledge that he is safe, loved, and home. This Christmas, I'ma shed a tear or two, thinking back on all the things you used to do. I'll be missing you just the same, but I'ma make a memory like we used to. End of chapter and end of fic. As always, guys, thank you for listening, and please, please, please follow the links. They're on the screen, they're on the page, they're somewhere. Go to the author, go to OllieCollie. Leave them praise, leave them kudos. They deserve it. Their writing is so wonderful, and I'm so grateful they let me do these readings. Have a lovely day or night, whatever it might be for you. Bye-bye.